Drive Time with Roz Connors on Gateway 97.8.
There's a song from Denoro there. It's called In My Mind. Don't know what's in your mind this afternoon. In my mind, it's a cup of tea. Something like a cup of tea would be good about this time of the day. Perhaps with some cookies. I don't know, maybe even a donut. Maybe not. I don't know. Got to watch the pounds, you know. Good afternoon from me. Anyway, it's 7 minutes past 4 in the afternoon. Must say a big thanks to Ari for the last show. I know he enjoyed the comedy bit at the end with the two youngsters. And we're on to more serious matters now, with Essex County Council backing the option for a new £6 billion Thames crossing. It's been proposed by the government, despite claims it will create a toxic triangle. Is that what's going to happen? Well, we can chat this afternoon to two people from the Thames Crossing Action Group. I've got the chair of it, Laura Blake, joining me in the studio right now. A toxic triangle. That's a word, an expression I haven't heard before, but I do know that Thurrock is one of the most polluted areas of the whole of the UK.
Indeed, Roz, yes. I mean, I think right across the area, both sides of the river, we have illegally high pollution levels. And obviously that is a big issue for the residents everywhere that's going to be affected by it. The toxic triangle comes from the fact of the A2, which will be at the bottom of the triangle, the M25 coming up the left-hand side, and then this new Lower Thames crossing coming up on the right, making that triangle. And obviously that will create a lot more pollution in the area and stick within that triangle and go all around that triangle.
Now, this has been a contentious plan for a long time, and there were a number. I think that we've got to accept that we do need another crossing for the area. Do you accept that we do need another?
We definitely do. We're all impacted. Everyone, both sides of the river, are impacted by the issues at the Dartford crossing. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that something needs to be done there. It needs to be fixed. Our problem with this is that the Lower Thames crossing, as it stands, is not going to solve that. Tim Jones, the project director for the Lower Thames crossing for Highways England, admitted at the March task force meeting at the Thurrock Council that it won't actually solve the problems to the north and south of the river. He's on record saying that. There's audio online on the council website that proves that.
And why is that? Why won't it solve the congestion problems in his mind?
Well, I'm not sure
in yours.
I'm not sure about his mind. I'm not quite sure what happens there sometimes, to be honest. But in our opinion, we have figures that the current crossing is around 117% capacity most days now. When you think about the fact that by the time this new crossing is built, if it's built, they're expecting at least 20% growth in traffic. That's pushing it right up. So even with these latest figures that have amazingly jumped from 14% being taken away to 22%, it's quite apparent that that is still going to be over capacity at the Dartford crossing. No one's going to want to really detour miles out of their way to use that new crossing if they want to just go around the M25.
Exactly. Now, obviously, a crossing lower down, the way I see it, and perhaps the way you see it and others see it as well, that you'd look at taking the eastbound traffic away from the M25 completely, like, say, from Folkestone, Dover in Kent, perhaps up to Harwich and Felixstowe in Suffolk.
Indeed. There is an argument for that. From our group, we're also very interested for people to know, if they don't already, about option A14, which would be a tunnel running from around junction 2 on the M25 up to around junction 29. Being around 7 miles long, it would all be filtered.
So junction 2 is where?
The A2.
The A2, okay,
Yep.
Let's just get this straight.
Sure, yeah.
And junction 29, that's the A127, isn't
Indeed,
it?
yes. Yeah. So with a tunnel about 7 miles coming through, all the air would be filtered. So your pollution levels would actually improve through the area. It would also take at least 40% of the traffic away from the Dartford crossing using that A14 option. So we feel that that would be a much better option if we have to have one.
Quite a long tunnel, though, isn't it? It's quite a long tunnel, and I should imagine one of the reasons for not doing that is that it will be perhaps cost prohibitive.
The estimate that they gave on that was actually 6.6 billion. The current crossing, the latest figures that they announced on Wednesday, is 6.8 billion.
Okay, so not a great deal of difference then.
Nope.
Okay, so who have you consulted about these details? Have you gone to your local MP? And I know in Thurrock you've got Jackie Doyle-Price. For this area, or Basildon and East Thurrock, you've got Stephen Metcalfe, both Conservative MPs.
Yeah, we do. We have both. Unfortunately, Jackie Doyle-Price hasn't been as approachable as Stephen Metcalfe.
Why is that?
different theories on it. She seems to be saying that she's opposed to it, but she seems to also say what she thinks the public want to hear at times of election, but then doesn't always necessarily follow through. We have tried to have meetings with her, but she doesn't seem to be receptive to that idea, whereas Stephen Metcalfe has been very open, very welcoming to talk to us, to try and help us with Highways England. We have regular meetings with him. Even to this day, we would be more than happy to sit down with Jackie Doyle-Price. She's recently announced that she feels that there should be calls for judicial review, as have Thurrock Council. We would be more than happy to talk to her. Obviously, the stronger we are, the more of us there are to fight this together. We would welcome any support and help that we can get from anyone, MPs, members of the public. We would sit down quite happily and talk to her. Jackie, if you are listening, please get in touch. We would love to sit down and chat with you and Stephen together.
Okay, well, that's we'll throw the gauntlet down for that one. But obviously, this you say challenging it and changing it. Isn't it set in stone now, the plans?
Not at all. No, Ros. They have announced their preferred route, but they still have to go through statutory consultation, which was announced this week, started on Wednesday.
Now, there's a number of events, isn't there, coming up?
There are. Yeah. First one being on Tuesday at Allsit Hall between 2 and 9 p.m. All the details for any of the other events can be found on Highways England's site and also on ours, which is thamescrossingactiongroup.com. We would encourage people to come along, ask questions of Highways England, and to take your time when you're filling in the questionnaire for the consultation. There is a lot of documentation. Make sure you get all your answers to your questions, and be aware that it will be a tick box exercise. They will be trying to get the responses they want. Don't be caught up in those tick boxes. There is also room for free comments. Use it and express your opinions and your feelings on this.
Okay, talking to Laura Blake, the Vice Chair of the Thames Crossing Action Group, and also Roger Slade, who's sitting next to her in my studio today at Gateway 97.8. We've got to take a break for travel just in a minute to find out if we are doing well this afternoon at the Dartford River Crossing and, of course, other parts of our area today. Stay listening. This is our local radio coming to you from the heart of Eastgate.
Gateway 97.8 Drive Time.
Drive time for a Friday, and as you heard in the travel news there, severe delays at the Dartford River Crossing. Comes as no surprise to my guests this afternoon, Roger Slade, Chair, and Laura Blake, Vice Chair, both of the Thames Crossing Action Group. You heard it in the travel. I think it speaks for itself, doesn't it? The current situation. I did hear our MP saying at one time they thought about expanding the capacity of the existing crossing. That was one of the options too, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that takes us back to option A14, really. With that tunnel running underneath, it would take the national traffic out of the loop and it would leave the Dartford crossing for the local traffic. So that, in our opinion, has got to be a good thing. That would be a solution.
But wouldn't it create then a bottleneck, say, up at junction 29, which is where these delays are starting this afternoon? Aren't you just shifting the bottleneck?
It shouldn't actually, because the problem where you get the congestion at the moment is due to the actual crossings, the tunnels in particular coming from the south of the river. They've removed the
tolls though. They've got free-flowing traffic now though, haven't they?
They do, yes, but the hazardous vehicles are a major issue down there as well, obviously, with having to close the tunnels for that. I don't think it's actually necessarily the particular volume. It's because of the way that the tunnels are managed and where they have to stop and close for the hazardous vehicles. We're not talking about bringing any extra vehicles to the option A14 either. It would just be actually separating national and local traffic between the two different crossings. Yeah, option A14 taking your national traffic and the local traffic staying on the current crossing. So in theory, it wouldn't bring any extra traffic. You'd still have the same amount of traffic on there, but not have the bottleneck of having to drop down to a 50-mile-an-hour limit and having to stop for hazardous vehicles to be able to go through the crossing.
Now, one thing we haven't talked about here is the current impact on the residents. We've mentioned the pollution, but the threat of this new road coming, obviously it means a lot of bulldozing. Properties and businesses are going to be affected. How are people reacting to it in that area that you've spoken to?
Yeah, Ros, it is heartbreaking. It is devastating for these people. We talk to people on a regular basis, obviously, as part of our action group, and we have residents that are literally suicidal unfortunately.
That bad?
Definitely. There are some families within the North Ockenden area that are literally going to be surrounded during construction by the slip roads for this new crossing. They are literally, when you look at the map, they are a little white square in there with their houses surrounded by the construction area, and they're not within the red line boundary. They've literally put that around them, so they won't get any compensation, any support. They're going to have to live through this before they can get any sign of any compensation on it. 8 years of living with that being built around you and knowing that you end up with your house surrounded by motorway and slip roads. Yes. What can you say to these people? We're doing all we can to support them.
You're doing all that you can to support them. What are the government and the council doing to support them?
Thurrock Council are currently looking to take, they've got a barrister on board recently, and they are looking at options on judicial review upon this, because they feel that strongly for the flaw in the consultation and the fact that it has changed so differently in the criteria now. The original criteria being to fix the problems at the Dartford crossing. This has now become about land grab and development. It'd be bad enough to feel that these people are being put in this position if it actually solves something, but it won't. It simply isn't going to solve the issues at the Dartford crossing, and pollution will just get worse. And not only have people got the stress, they know that it isn't for any real benefit to anybody other than businesses for the development.
I worked out that option D, which would have been the option I'd have gone for, though it's probably more expensive. Option D, Canvey Island, the A130 across to the A228 perhaps in Kent, over at Grain or somewhere along the Rochester corridor, which they've already upgraded over there. And you'd be linking, as I've said in the previous part, Folkestone and Dover to Harwich and Felixstowe this side, and less of an impact. Surely it's just birds and marshland down that area of Kent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously anywhere that they do the crossing is going to have some kind of destruction and impact on the residents. I think the problem that we need to look at is what is actually the main issue. Why do we need the other crossing? And that is the Dartford crossing. So I can understand and appreciate what you're saying with what they called option D down at those locations. How much traffic that would actually take away from the current Dartford crossing, I'm not so sure on. But it is something that could maybe be looked at as well. You mentioned Felixstowe there and Dover. Highways England have been going and giving their sales pitch to these ports. Dover actually have one of the information events that we were talking about with regards to the consultation. Dover is miles away from this crossing, yet residents in Corringham, Stamford, Fobbing, Averley, Purfleet don't get their own actual information event. Why are they not letting the residents have their information events, yet Dover do? Why are they selling it to Felixstowe? Because they want to bring extra traffic and business down, and it suits them. They're not listening to residents, and that needs to change.
Well, we've been hearing on the news today about Brexit and, of course, changes at the ports as a result of forthcoming Brexit, and them talking about the M26 in Kent being turned into a big lorry park, which is a rather frightening concept, isn't it? Could that cause extra problems in this area, do you think, as well?
I mean, obviously it can, because if it's not going to solve the problems at Dartford, we're still going to get the build-ups there. We're going to still have all the traffic that's coming through, the lorries building up, and there isn't any provision for it. And I know that it's quite topical, as you say, with the M26 at the moment, where they're closing it to do work to decide whether they do need to have these lorry parks. It's just terrible that they're not forward thinking. Originally, this Lower Thames crossing was 2 lanes with the provision to future-proof to 3 lanes. Already before they've even got permission to build it, it's going to be a 3-lane motorway with no room for future-proofing it. Not that we want any more lanes. Thank you, Highways England. Get that in quick.
Now, Roger Slade, you're the chair of this action group. You've not spoken yet.
No,
I mean,
you're usually the quiet one.
You're the quiet one
like
today. I mean, I've got to put it to you. I mean, how is this affecting you personally?
Personally, I'll be looking from 3 aspects of my home. I'll be 20 yards away from the crossing, front, back and side, really. Compounds, construction for 6 or 7 years.
Not a happy thought then, is it?
Not a good thought, no. But I'm confident we can do something about it.
You're very confident, the pair of you.
Definitely, definitely. And we need everybody out there to support us. If you're against it, join in the fight, stand strong. We'll fight this all together.
If you think you're for it, have a good look at it, what this proposal is. And if you have a good look, I guarantee you'll walk away thinking it's wrong and there was better options thrown out.
Are any of the residents in your area for it?
I'm sure there's a few. We don't come across many, to be honest. Yeah. But you do get occasionally people say there is a need for a crossing. Simple as that. We all know that. There is a need for a crossing.
And it's always going to have to go somewhere, isn't it?
That's right. It's got to go somewhere, but there's ways of doing it. This was one of the most destructive ones. most destructive option, I believe this was, or second, wasn't it?
And I think most people that do jump in and say that they want it and they say, come on, we can't build it quick enough, don't actually realise the fact is it's not going to solve Dartford. Yes, we do want something, but let's not wait until they've actually built this one to realise it doesn't fix the problem and then have to try and still fix the problem in 8 years' time.
If this is the worst option, though, why do you think they've gone for it?
It opens up the land for development.
Yeah.
They've got 32,000 houses to find room for in the next sort of 20 years.
And that's just this side of the river.
We're talking about brownfield and greenfield sites as well.
And the agricultural land that's lost as well. There are great impact on the farmers. We've got grade 1 agricultural land that is going to be destroyed by this lower Thames crossing. Where are we going to get our food moving forward if they keep doing this?
Absolutely. Well, good luck with your campaign. Obviously, keep in contact with us, and we'd like to follow on with it and perhaps come back to you in a little while.
We'd love to come in again, and thanks for having us.
Find out how you're doing. No, it's great to have you in here today. And obviously, we weren't able to contact Stephen Metcalfe this afternoon. I did want to get him onto this show in a reaction to what we're talking about today, but we'll try and get him on at a future date. Laura Blake and Roger Slade, your chair and vice chair in reverse order there at the Thames Crossing Action Group. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for popping into the studio here at Gateway 97.8.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for
having us.
Brilliant stuff. It's 25 minutes past 5. News and sport on the way after this.